Welcome, everybody. Can't think of a better week to tune into the CIRF report. This week I'm calling the transition from crap, conflict, baggage, etc. And this is the start of feeling like we can rise, we can move forward. And although there still are some squares in astrology, and we'll get into all the days of the week. This CIRF report from October 1st through October 7th. Welcome to October. Still conflicted, especially with the triad, the Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. Pluto, by the way, going direct midway through this week. But if you're new here, what we do is we triangulate for the influence, and then we triangulate for the solution. And this week, it is unbelievable how everything overlaps. The influence, the solution, etc. So here's an example of, we start with the influence, and we'll do the same thing for the solution towards the end of the video. So that's the most important part. If you don't have time for the full video, normally it's about 30 minutes, at least zoom towards the end of it so you can see what the solution is. Or the solution is going to be the behaviors. How do you maximize the energy that we find out in the first part of the video? So the very first part, the astrology, you can see in the purple circle is, and I've been looking at the wrong camera, this is representative of the astrology, tropical astrology. We have a full moon in Aries. That's day number 1, October 1st. We also have a full moon at the end of October and on Halloween. We also have during this week a double square in Jupiter. And again, I just talked about breakthrough. So how do we have Jupiter conflicted on both sides, double square on both sides there. Not a T-square, but very similar. So how do we orchestrate that? So how do we say that that's like a breakthrough? Well, I'll explain all that. So just hold your horses. Mercury opposed Uranus is in there. We also have, I already mentioned Pluto going direct. That's going to be a part of this, but it's going to be a very deeply subtle influence. If anybody notices it at all, it'll be a kind of a sense of control, sense of power that you might have notched from like a scale of 1 to 100. It might have switched like 5 points in there. That's just a metaphor. The other circle we have is the Dreambot. We're going to spend some time looking at the collective unconscious from people's dreams. And this one's interesting. We're taking off, but we feel weighted down. And then there's this sense of what's coming. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing either. It's just what's coming. So if you put it all together, it might look like what dreams may come. Then in the I-Ching, we cast the coins and we got the Wanderer. So if you put all this together in the overlap, they are very overlapped. The I-Ching, the Wanderer is, it only represents a small portion of the astrology. I think the Dreambot is much better overlapped with all of the astrological influences. But if you want to really just look at the main overlap, we're looking at, I just want to be free. And don't think about like a metaphor thing, but more of like a physical / spiritual thing. And that will set the stage for when we get into all the different modalities. And I'll leave it at that. I just want to be free, but not really in a liberty sort of sense. Free to transcend, free to move about. I mean, that's more of a physical thing, yes, but free in terms of bettering myself and driving towards the life that I want. That's the kind of freedom we're looking at. And let's get into the Dreambot next. If this is your first time coming to a CIRF report, smash on the subscribe button so that you don't miss our weekly energy updates. Here is the list of people's dreams, the most common words. We call this the Dreambot. We also refer to it as the best indication of the collective unconscious. And you can see in the red arrows, it is taking off. We've got parachute and dove, things that are flying. But we also have like insight and bedtime. So, dreams are included in there. Some say that when we go to sleep, we kind of take off as well. Different energy bodies might be leaving and coming back later, kind of like Avatar. Then you have the ball and chain, which I call the blue arrows, because everything in there is kind of like the soup of heaviness. And so it is pretty equal, taking off, but also being weighted down. And that is directly in the astrology. That's like pretty much everything we're going to talk about is I want to run, but I feel conflicted. Okay. And then the orange arrows or yellow is what's coming next. Like you're ordering it on a plate, we're preparing, we're feeling motivated, what's approaching, etc. All right. So that's where we are in the collective unconscious. And that's important because mind drives behavior. If we know what everyone is subconsciously thinking or obsessing about, we can sort of predict what's going to happen next. So that's why we do this. Now, next to the collective mind, some would say the collective mind is influenced by the astrology, and I would absolutely agree with that. But we talk about them as separate influences for the sake of triangulation. Now, in the astrology, and I'm missing my highlighter, so excuse me, I forgot to get that ready. And here we go. And we'll do this. There it is, folks. Pluto finally going direct halfway through our week. These black vertical lines is the week itself. So that's the time period that we're looking, the first part of October. And these are the squares. All that red there, that deep red, that is representative of the squares we've been working through, and there's still remnants left. And as you can see, they're going to start to peter out as this line gets lighter. That energy starts to wane. This Mars square Pluto is going exact on the 9th. So that's be the next CIRF report. And then that'll be it of the squares. Okay. And then we have the sun still in Libra. And we have Venus moving from Leo into Virgo. So your sense of beauty is going to be very OCD-ish or very detail-oriented. Oh, gosh. Maybe a lot more acceptance in terms of how you look, how you present to the world. Just be aware of that. And, of course, Venus can also mean finance, so maybe much more detailed and organized around your money and how you spend your money. And just be prepared for that energy. Oh, it's Saturday, so starting in the weekend, Venus will tip there into Virgo. And other than that, we're going to talk about day by day. So let's do that now. We start on Thursday with a full moon and a full moon in Aries. So this lunar cycle is starting over again, Aries being the first sign in the zodiac. And so the craziness begins over again. Full moon, typically we have some crazy. We have Chiron there with the full moon, 2 degrees away. And we haven't talked about him in quite some time. And this could be a healing full moon. Chiron is known as the healer. But remember, Chiron doesn't just heal himself. He indirectly heals himself by first healing others. So maybe that's the trick here. If you're wanting healing, try to figure out a way to especially plus or minus 24 hours of this full moon, which, by the way, was about 4 p.m. on October 1st. That's Central Standard Time, or Central Daylight Savings Time. All right. So around that time frame, figure out how you can help heal others. And we can do this transpersonally with prayer, meditation, focused, guided meditation, that sort of thing. even that influences and can help others. That's an option. But if you want to use it with your hands, maybe commensurate with how you need healing would be a good thing to do. Maybe make it a sort of a ritual. All throughout the ages, in the full moons, we had rituals and maybe some sort of sacrifice. I'm not talking about bleeding out and all that gory stuff. I'm talking about maybe sacrificing a pleasure that you have around this time as a sense of, sacrificing to the moon. Maybe a good time to stop smoking, that sort of thing. Get rid of a bad habit. There's a sacrifice. All right. So Aries, can be impulsive. And so we already have sort of that crazy energy with the full moon, and now it's in Aries. So it can feel kind of like selfish. We've already talked about how to get around that, just to look at ways of helping heal others in this time. And in doing so, you actually help yourself. So it's a roundabout way you can impart that Aries sort of selfishness. But Aries is also bold and can be very impulsive. In days, so Friday, Saturday, moon going past Mars, you get an extra jolt of this full moon energy because Mars in Aries as well. Mars has been in Aries for some time. And as it whips past there, now we got energetically an additional energetic boost. Mars obviously owns or rules Aries. And so fiery, yang, sometimes angry. And of course, Mars is conflicted. So this is, as we get on that day where this basically full moon is passing Mars, consider that this would be a good day to just sit on your hands. And I know that kind of goes against what the solution's going to be, which is like rise up. But not a good day when Mars and moon are together, triple conflicted, squared over to Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. So just saying, good day to really just kind of bite your tongue, sit on your hands and try to be. And maybe the rise up that we talk about later is more of a spiritual thing. All right. We also have Mercury oppose Uranus. And so your deeply passionate thoughts, rational, maybe secret thoughts, are going to have to be balanced and utilizing those in assimilating the changes from Uranus in Taurus. So the material changes are going to produce a lot of thoughts, maybe illogical, maybe deeply passionate thoughts. You're going to have to sort that out. And then one last thing here, you've got the sun with an adjustment to the Uranus. So it's not only your thoughts adjusting, but also your ego, your identity is adjusting to the changes coming from Uranus. All right, enough of that. Let's move on to Friday, the 2nd of October. This is when we see the moon's approaching Mars, and you can see this huge red spot. And this is what I was talking about. Maybe a good day to just sit on your hands, or if you feel that rise up energy. Again, I'm kind of mixing the solution with the influence today because it's all overlapped. It's just a good day to not be doing a lot of things because you might be running into emotional conflict. Lots of emotional conflict. If Mars is already kind of sort of a conflict in and of himself, he doesn't have to be conflicted, but it's easy for Mars to get conflicted and be upset and angry, especially in retrograde. All right, so keep aware of that. That's the main thing going on. You still have Mercury oppose Uranus. On Saturday, now we're starting to get the double square. So Sun moves into place, and now we're starting to have a double square on Jupiter. Now is when I want to talk about. This is where the main overlaps with the other modalities is Jupiter with a double square. It's because you can start feeling this, Jupiter's our cheerleader. Jupiter is positive, and he's he's wise, and he's owner or leader or ruler of Sagittarius, and so loves long explorations down into philosophy and spirituality, but very positive, very optimistic. But unfortunately, he's got a double square, one over to Mars and one over to the sun. And so what does that feel like? That doesn't take away his positivity, but wants to be positive. So wants to be optimistic, wants to explore, and then feels like you can't. That kind of feels like being pent up. And so this is the day where Jupiter and even Sagittarius, because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, is just wanting to be set free. This is the energy of, I just want to be free. Stop messing with me. Let me do my thing. And, Jupiter is also kind of goal-oriented as well. And so that, everything I just mentioned, philosophy, spirituality, positivity, optimism, even economy, that kind of thing, is goal-oriented. And I've got to be doing something, but every time I try to start it, it's conflicted. And Jupiter is forward-looking. It's kind of a future, and it's kind of a fate, but also fortune, and that's goal-oriented. But every time I try to do something, a conflict is thrown in my face. But so it's not a give up energy. It's a just leave me alone energy. So enjoy that one. But that is the influence. That's the main part of the influences we'll explore towards the end of this section. We have Pluto on Sunday, the 4th. Pluto station direct. Now this triplet, Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, going direct and going forward, apparent to Earth, but still Jupiter with a double square. Like I said before, Pluto switching to direct is, you're probably going to see evidence of that rather than feel the changes happening. But hey, the more sensitive of you, maybe the Scorpios of you, or may feel that change in power, that more forward-looking inner power. So good on you if you feel that. On Monday, now we have the moon making a trine over there. That's a temporary reprieve emotionally, easy energy. These trines are easy. I forgot to speak about the Venus trine Uranus. So easy changes in relationships. And I also missed Venus going into Virgo. But, your relationships, your beauty, your sense of presenting yourself is going to be much more detail oriented. And so easily assimilating and adapting to Uranus changes as well. Then on Tuesday, we have the same double squares. We have Mercury with the same opposition there. We have Venus with the trine to Uranus. Again, a lot of stuff happening, but what we have to talk about is this. On Wednesday, you can see the finale. There's a double square here, triple square over here. So still a lot of conflict in here, but with Mercury at the center of it, of just wanting to be set free. And that's what we have. Now, you know what? I had a little bonus. Totally forgot about this. I'm throwing in a little bonus chart. This is for the election day. This is November 3rd at 12 p.m. And you can see how what's really interesting is our thoughts are conflicted with what's rising on the east horizon. In astrology, the east horizon is on this left side. And this is the ascendant. So this is what is ascending at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. I guess there's a time change in there somewhere. And it's Capricorn at 12, noon Central Time. And you have these Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. We've been talking about these for some time. This is the wise, positive transformation of everything we have ever known. That's Saturn. Status quo. The positive transformation of the status quo is rising on the horizon midday on election day. I thought that was really cool. And then there's, of course, there's some other influences. Of course there is. Sun trine Neptune. So easy to dream that day. It's very dreamy. And both Sun and Neptune are in water signs. So it's very passionate. Sun, very passionate and vindictive. That's the secret part of, or the shadow side to Scorpio, can be very vindictive. And unfortunately, that's on election day. All right, back to this week. Let's get rid of our highlighter. And we're looking at the 1st through the 7th still. And this is the I-Ching. And we came up with the hexagram 56, fire over mountain. It's the Wanderer. And this is the same as Sag and Jupiter. And I just want to wander. I just want to be free. Inwardly, the wanderer knows that sometimes difficult to discern the intentions of strangers. Are they hostile or friendly or merely opportunistic? This has to do with the double square on Jupiter. I want to be positive, but hard to trust people. Twin houses of mystery and discovery rule any journey we take. Travel is the great teacher and a great equalizer. There is an art to living on the road. Increased caution and discernment become the keys not only to success, but survival. You are entering a new environment. If you are entering into a new environment, be sincere, flexible, and undemanding rather than stubborn. This is not the time to be Taurus. This is the time to be Sagittarius. When we plot Jupiter on the chart, as you're going to see, you're going to get its home sign. I'm going to explain all this later. It all makes sense. It's all overlapped. All right, line 3. When a traveler in a strange place has no one to trust, the situation can become dangerous. If you meddle in affairs and controversies that do not concern you, you are taking a serious risk. If you are careless with those who are willing to help you, you will lose their support. Those who become arrogant in the company of those who are perceived to be little are cut off at the knees. No place is safe for the ill-behaved. So explore, but be adaptable, be flexible, and don't be too rigid. All right? Now is where we get into the solution, and we do that after we hear from our sponsor. If you want to learn how to individually rise out of your suffering, then look me up on interzention.com, send me a note, tell me that you want to be on the schedule, and I will help you get out of that funk and that stuckness. Here's the solution, folks. When you put in the change line to the that other hexagram of wandering, then you get 35. It's easy progress. Isn't that cool? This is something that we haven't seen in a long time. It's just been all conflict and drudgery. And now we're in a situation, we're in transition. The situation is one of easy, natural progress. What has been weak is ascending. And by gaining, remember last week, the dimming of the light? The image here is the light of the rising sun. Unbelievable, isn't it? So, obviously, we didn't get the 3 days of darkness, or maybe you did in your location, but it wasn't an international or a nationwide thing. And so it must have been more of a spiritual or individual thing. Light of the rising sun, which at first appears dimly through the mist, but this same light will radiate with powerful clarity once the sun has reached its high position in the sky. And what this is trying to say is set your sights and basically hitch. It says right here, hitch your wagon to the rising sun, as it were, that we advance our position and earn respect. It's time to be seen. It's time to rise up. but it's easy. It's not like you're going to be going look for battles. It's just expand your heart, expand your sense of values, and light it up. It's the rising sun, and the sun's not afraid to be seen at all. Okay, here's where we put in the calculator, and we basically take our biggest influence for the week, which was not the, well, I mean, it was related. The full moon was related to this. It's, Aries hates being held down. And so this wants to be free thing has everything to do with the full moon. But the reason why I chose to plot Jupiter was because it was a sustained thing. The full moon is plus or minus 24 hours, which is the first part of the week. The Jupiter squares was pretty much the entire week. And so we plot the Jupiter here, and we get Rave mandala 54. We'll talk about that. And we also get Sagittarius. Pretty cool. So Jupiter is ruled as Sagittarius. And so in sidereal terms, Jupiter is home. Is home. All right. Now here's what's really neat. You want to put everything together. We have a solution slide later, but how neat does the Rave mandala take everything that we talked about and give out a very interesting doorway to progress? All right. It's the gate of ambition. And in the original I-Ching, the marrying maiden referred to was based on the legend of a concubine that eventually became the empress of all of China. This embodies the idea of rising up, moving up the ladder. This is the gate of drive. Since this gate is a fuel of the ego circuit, and that it has inherent meaning, its inherent ambition. All right, start over. Its inherent meaning is ambition. It can be easily dismissed as a very mundane energy. It may be surprising then to discover that the most mystical line of 384 is the Rave I-Ching 54. That's what the gate we're talking about. For enlightenment and endarkenment. It may appear to be an irony, but it is not. Only when one has mastered the instincts to operate on the mundane plane is transformation possible. This gate fuels the drive to transform. In biological terms, it is associated with the body's liquid production. The significance is that through the liquid medium, that memory is stored and transported. This instinctive stream is all about memory. All right, time to get to the solution slide. And here we go on the top side. I didn't even try to do the Schumann resonance. I didn't even look at it. But if you can see this feeling, this is coming from the collective unconscious, the Dreambot. We're flying. We want to fly, but we're weighted down. This is a hippo attached to a balloon, and you got the elephant in the room. That could be your obvious obstacles in your life. You're being weighed down by those. The solution is, here's what you want to do. So the influence is, I just want to cut all these things. I want to cut all my problems away. I want to cut all the things that are holding me back. But here's the solution. In the I-Ching 35, it said, easy progress. Just hitch yourself to the sun, the rising sun, and let it shine for you. Then the Rave mandala says, we're in the gate of ambition. So the instincts of the drive to transform. So this is more of a spiritual thing, but it can be very materialistic too. It's about transformation, but also enlightenment, ascension. So very good week for the Rave mandala and for the energy of progress. Then Sagittarius, like I talked about, is the same sort of archetype as Jupiter. So expansive, free, wise, wide-ranging, optimistic, philosophical, very spiritual. But if you're going to impart your Sagittariusness, you're going to try to bring in the characteristics of Sagittarius, which I encourage you to do, then you need to avoid being impatient. This is kind of the downside of Sag. Avoid being confrontational, avoid being picky and superficial. So we put all this together, and you can already see how well related it all has to do with each other. Easy progress is totally a Sagittarius thing. It's just, don't hold me back. Just let me range and just go and gallop for miles and miles and miles and explore. So in general, here's we go to the very center of the overlap, and we see the full moon in Tropical Aries, plus the Dreambot, plus the Rave mandala, plus both sides of the I-Ching, plus the Sidereal solution all point to the same thing, which is just rise up. And if you want to make that metaphoric, it's a spiritual rise up. I suggest that it's the whole being. Rise up in emotions, rise up in mentality, transcend in the spiritual planes, rise up, transform. Rave shows us how to master the mundane, to develop instincts for enlightenment. Sag wants to gallop off to the sunset with easy, flat, expansive spiritual exploration. The I-Ching demands we bridle up to the rising sun. And it's again, none of this is suggesting that you fight your way to this. It's the easy route. And that's kind of hard to conceive of when you have two squares off to Jupiter. But we're showing you how to do this. If the outward circumstances, because of those squares, in your experience, if the outward circumstances are too conflicted, too heavy, too draining, then here's what you do. Do everything that we do, all the rising up and all the other suggestions here via a spiritual quest by learning to master the mundane. So come back out to the material world and experience things so deeply through your five senses that you're actually transcend the material through that gate, the gate of experiencing so deeply that you're not part of this. Where I don't know if you've ever felt this, but try it sometime. It's very hard to maintain it for any length of time. Maybe easy to do for a couple seconds, but hard to keep that orientation. Anyway, the Rave suggests going into the mundane is to feel and appreciate, accept the mundane things. And that could include your problems, your conflicts, the too heaviness, etc., health problems, all that. Feel, experience the mundane, and instead of escaping, go so far into that experience, you lose yourself. It's this week, and then for others of you, it's going to be a literal rise. It's going to be pushing your life mission forward. It's going to be pushing your career forward. It's some people are talking about what dreams may come. This is the week to do that. It's rise, but it's not a lot of toil. It's not a lot of heavy lifting. It's actually releasing the heaviness, releasing, a lot of times it's our perception that's heavy, and it's not really all that heavy. It's just the way that we're perceiving it as heavy. So that's how we can cut the ropes to those, let those fall. And that's the other way to rise, where it's not like heavy lifting rising, but releasing the heaviness, which makes you lighter. All right. I know that there's two sorts of modes. I'm saying do them all. Do the spiritual version, do the literal version, the physical version, the emotional. Do all that work this week. The more the better. This is the time to rise. Make sure your life is rising. All right. That's all I got. Questions below, comments below. Thank you, everybody, for your likes and shares. Have a great week. Where we go one, we go all.